Welcome back, boys and girls, to the first weekly mailbox of 2020, episode 27. I think we're up to now. We're getting there in the big numbers, but if you are new around here and you have no clue what the weekly mailbox is, don't worry. Here it is, your weekly chance to ask me questions about anything you like. It can be motorsport based, it doesn't have to, but generally, we like to talk about Formula 1, Formula E, and anything in between. So if you've got a question for me, feel free to throw it in the comments section below or send it over on any of my social media channels. But I think, without further ado, we will jump into question 1 of 2020. And that question comes from Mike. Yeah, very straightforward. Mike on YouTube, who asks, who will be able to take the fight to Mercedes in 2020, Ferrari or Red Bull? Now, one of the big criticisms about Formula 1 and the hybrid era is this Mercedes domination. And 2020, the last kind of year of the hybrid era, I don't know if we'll call it something new. Aerodynamic era part 2, I'm not really too sure, but a big regulation change in 2021, you expect to mix things up. And whilst it will still be a hybrid engine, we're all hoping that the grid's going to mix up a little bit. Maybe a big team like Mercedes, for example, will drop to the bottom and Williams will become champions. New year, new me, I know, praising Williams for once. But for this year, this season, I think a lot of it's going to stay the same. I spoke about it a couple of days ago in my Daniel Ricciardo video, and I don't really see many teams pumping millions and millions and millions extra into 2020 when at the end of the year, it's just going to completely change anyway. So I think we're in a funny year 2020, but it wouldn't surprise me if a team like Ferrari or a team like Red Bull took the gamble, did put in a little bit more and try and just overtake Mercedes. Because, and this is the reason I picked this question to start off with, is that at the end of last year, the end of 2019, almost every weekend we were going into, you didn't really know who was going to win. A Ferrari driver last year got the most pole positions of anyone. We saw, was it 5 different drivers win Grand Prix last season from the 3 different top teams? That's not a bad statistic. And actually, we weren't seeing Hamilton winning every weekend like we'd seen in the past. Sure, Hamilton won plenty of races last year and was comfortably the champion, but if you actually look at the points championship of the second half of the year, it was a hell of a lot closer. And if Mercedes hadn't had that brilliant start to the year, I really think we would have seen a completely different championship. I'm kind of avoiding the question because Mike asked, will it be Ferrari or Red Bull that's going to be able to bring the biggest challenge to Mercedes? And judging off, it's so difficult. It's so difficult because if I look at the very end of 2019, I was really starting to like the look of Max Verstappen and what he was able to do. And actually across the season, he was super, super consistent. And that Red Bull car seemed to be getting better and better and better. Ferrari, on the other hand, as I said, Leclerc got the most pole positions of anybody. They did win 3 Grand Prix as a team over the season and definitely could have won more races. So it's really just a toss of the coin. But I have a gut feeling about Max Verstappen and Red Bull. I think what they were able to do with their first year with Honda was so good, so impressive. I didn't see that coming. And that relationship just seems to gel so well. It's surely only going to get better in year 2. Yeah, I will say Red Bull, and I'll say keep an eye out for Max Verstappen, but I don't really think you need me to tell you that in 2020. Moving on to question 2, another question from YouTube. I'm not very good with names, so apologies. We'll go with Binod. Sorry. I said I'd get better for that this year, but I'm really not. Anyway, good question. Really like this question. Is 2020 the last chance for Valtteri Bottas to fight for a championship? I believe it's going to be even tougher because Mercedes would probably want to push Hamilton for a 7th title. Thank you very much for your question, and I kind of agree with you. I think definitely that Hamilton's 7 titles would be an incredible achievement, not only for Lewis, but for Mercedes as well, and to continue their dominance from the hybrid era is definitely going to be a big target for them. And I think, yeah, you're right, probably having that record with Hamilton is probably something of interest for them. But I think, actually, whilst this is a point, I don't think that's the reason it's going to be tougher for Valtteri. I think the more interesting factor over 2020, and the thing that's probably going to be playing on his mind a little bit more, is the 2021 driver market, which we've got some more questions about that a little bit later on, in the midst of Max Verstappen signing for another 3 seasons. But I think Russell and Ocon are going to be huge pressures on the back of Valtteri Bottas. What if Russell is destroying Nicholas Latifi, a little bit like he did with Big Robbo Kubica? What if Russell is getting into Q2 in a dog of a Williams car? Then you're thinking, oh wow, he should really get a chance. Then the media's going to jump on the back of George Russell saying, yeah, he needs a chance in the top team. Then what if Esteban Ocon is comfortably beating Daniel Ricciardo? Yes, he's in a 2-year deal at Renault. I believe it's a 2-year deal. Yeah, and he's managed by Mercedes still, but he's not a Mercedes young driver. It's all a bit messy, but they can bring him back if they really, really want to. That's going to play on Bottas's mind enough, I think, to make a difference. And like you've mentioned in your question, will they prioritise Hamilton? I definitely think so. And if we link that to question 1, if Mercedes are under threat from Red Bull and Ferrari, I definitely think they'll put all their eggs in one basket to secure Hamilton that championship. So Bottas, will it be his last chance to fight for a title? Potentially. I think he's a good enough a driver to replace a Sebastian Vettel. We might talk about that a little bit later on, spoilers. He's proven he can win races, but he's also proven he can be that number 2 driver. So I think, has he got the potential to be champion? I think so. Bottas 2.0 Porridge Master is a super good driver, and that consistency is getting there, but he needs to take another step this year. I'm not too sure whether he's going to be able to make that step. And like you say, with those extra pressures, just seems a little bit too much. And I think, yeah, this probably will be his last chance to fight for a championship. Moving on to question 3, Sam asks, now Sam, I can pronounce that one, thank you very much. Does Max Verstappen staying at Red Bull until 2023 mean that Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel will stay at their respective teams till this time? I don't think so. And I'm quite surprised, actually, at the, I was going to say backlash at the news about Max Verstappen. It's not really that. Perhaps the debate, I think is a better way of putting it, around the news with Max Verstappen. I just always felt Verstappen was going to stay at Red Bull. I really did, and I know a lot of people felt that he would jump ship to Mercedes. If Ferrari got good in 2019 and 20, he would jump over there. And whilst, yeah, Mercedes and Ferrari definitely would love to have a driver like Verstappen on their books, I didn't really see the need for Verstappen to move anywhere. He's the number 1 at a top 3 team. They're a team that is solid in Formula 1 in the sense that they're not going to jump ship in the next few years. He's not only clearly the number 1, but Red Bull are struggling with their second driver, so it's in Red Bull's best interest to keep him. And I also think, I don't think that's going to make any difference to Hamilton or Vettel. I think Vettel, whilst I said the other day maybe could go back to Red Bull, I'm not really seeing it happening. For me, Sebastian will just leave. I can't see him going elsewhere. We spoke last year in the summer, I think it was. Where will Sebastian Vettel go? I don't think he'll go into the midfield like drivers like Ricciardo and Raikkonen have done over the past few seasons. And I don't really think a top team are that interested. I think Red Bull have got prospects in their own junior academy. I think Red Bull would probably rather take a Carlos Sainz from a McLaren than take a Sebastian Vettel. Vettel, yeah, he's a 4-time world champion and has proven he can win races, but there's no denying last year wasn't great. And if there's another season like that, teams won't want him. For Hamilton, I don't think he would have gone to Red Bull anyway. I really don't. Does that encourage Mercedes to keep him? Yeah, potentially. Although if Russell, they want to take that gamble, if Ricciardo's available, then maybe you argue that they don't necessarily need to keep him, though it kind of would make sense. So I think more so, rather than it all being messed up by Verstappen, the driver market, like a lot of people were saying, I feel it didn't really make a difference anyway. I personally feel the key players within the transfer market are Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, and more so, it's just going to be when they retire. I think that'll be the game changer, because that's when your younger drivers slowly start to move up the field. That's when big names get their big move or miss out on an opportunity. So, yes, Verstappen staying has a little bit of effect. I don't think as much as people were saying, but I did enjoy that one, and it might be a topic I maybe look at in a little bit more detail over the next few weeks. I'm not too sure. Thank you for your question though, Sam. Question 4, and our first question from Instagram, SV5 team. Now, if you know who SV5 are, you know what kind of fan base we're dealing with here today. Sebastian Vettel, if you weren't too sure. Anyway, question not about Sebastian Vettel, actually. It's about McLaren. Will McLaren break into the top 3 teams this year? You know what? This is something that hadn't even crossed my mind before I saw this question, because I thought it was so incredible what they did in 2019. The year before, 2018, I really, and I've probably mentioned this a few times, and you're all sick to death of me saying this, but I really remember that last race in 2018 where Alonso and Van Dorn were fighting at the back of the grid with Stroll and Sorokin. That's how dire it was getting for McLaren. This year, changing personnel all over the team. We've got the 2 new drivers, obviously the face of the team and that fresh personality. Andreas Seidel, the new team manager, or team principal kind of. It's all a bit messy, titles like that. But you know what I'm trying to say, team principal. He came in, I think did a really fantastic job and pushing that team in the right direction. Zach Brown took more of a relaxed role, and I think that definitely suited his talent a little bit better. I didn't expect them to be 4th, and I didn't expect them to be comfortably 4th, yet alone on the podium that they did in Brazil as well with Carlos Sainz. For this season, I just assumed, yeah, they're going to be in that midfield fight again, but why can't they go one better? That they're going to have the funds, and perhaps most importantly of all, James Key, the technical director, is going to have his first real opportunity to produce a car. And it's their 3rd year with Renault? Yeah, 3rd year with Renault, final year with Renault. I don't think Renault's got an awful engine. I don't think it's dreadful. And the law of diminishing returns, I think most of the engines these days are pretty similar. Red Bull, over the last few years, have been able to get podiums with Renault engines. Why can't McLaren? Why can't McLaren show it with the best chassis on the grid? It's possible. Do I think they will be up there? Probably not. And I definitely don't think McLaren will overtake Red Bull and Red Bull will drop back. I don't think we'll have 3 teams. I think if McLaren get good, we'll have 4. And I think a lot of people would love to see an extra team in that top fight. It's a bit of a big jump for me. It is a bit of a big step. And with 2021 looming, I don't really see a team like McLaren or Renault really committing that much money on making that big step up for 2020 when they can kind of just, I don't want to say coast for a season, but they can kind of just say, look, 2020, it is what it is. 2021 is the focus. And for McLaren as well, for me, they're in a brilliant position for 2021. They've got 2 drivers that are young, that are hungry, that, especially in the case of Lando Norris, can have a couple of years to gain experience and then really go at it in 2021. They're all signed in with contracts. They're not going to move anywhere. Likewise with Key and Seidel. I'm still not quite sure how I pronounce that one. So I'm happy and looking forward to them in 2021. I think 2020 is a bit early, but I like this one. I like the positivity that's finally coming back with McLaren. We spent quite a while with quite a lot of negative questions about McLaren. Would they leave? Would they ever get back to the front? Would they ever score a podium? So it's nice, that bit of fresh air with the team is quite lovely. And our final question, question number 5. If you're new around here, you might not know what we do with question 5, but if you're a veteran of the channel, you will know question 5, our audience participation question. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. And this one, I probably know what you're going to say, but I'm really intrigued. Who will be F1 champion for 2020? And that question comes from Eurobeat Boy. It seems logical to say Lewis Hamilton, right? It seems logical that Mercedes will remain at the top. It seems logical that Bottas won't really be able to challenge. He's been pretty much unchallenged since the hybrid era began. There was that rivalry with Rosberg. That's a bit of a mouthful. At the beginning of the hybrid era. But it's like we've said, And I really do believe this. In the second half of last season, it was anyone's game. And if we started the season in Austria after that French Grand Prix, not only would we have had the majority of the season being absolute bangers of Grand Prix, but the Drivers' Championship would be all over the place. We'd have Verstappen, Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, all in that title fight. So I actually think it's a lot closer than people give it credit for. Who do I give it to? I said it at the beginning of the video, and I kind of feel it now. I do have a gut feeling about Max Verstappen. I really do, and this whole fresh air about him getting a new contract, the performances he was putting in at the end of the season. I mean, Brazil in particular, that's a circuit that should suit Red Bull, but also Mercedes, and yet he was convincingly the best driver there that weekend. Yeah, I might change my mind in a few weeks when I do my predictions video, but right now, in this moment, I have a funny feeling about Max Verstappen. Yeah, I'll go with that. Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, and as I've mentioned throughout today's show, if you want to ask your questions, you can do over on social media or in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. If you are new around here, we do this every single Wednesday, and actually, I wasn't going to mention this, but I will do. I'm toying with the idea of doing a few live mailboxes, a few live stream weekly mailboxes, potentially. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that if you care, to be totally honest. If you don't, fair play. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one.